The American Revolution was a fight between Britain and their 13 American colonies. There were arguments and small fights that led up to it, such as the Proclamation of 1763, the French and Indian War, the Stamp Act, the Quartering Act, the Boston Massacre, the Boston Tea Party, the Tea Act, the Intolerable Acts, Thomas Paine's Common Sense, and the Sugar Act. The French and Indian War was a war between Great Britain and their colonies versus the French and their Indian allies. They fought for their land until Britain won and the Proclamation of 1763 was drawn up and approved. The Proclamation of 1763 stated that France gave Canada to Great Britain. It also established boundaries so another war wouldn't break out. Britain started getting a closer look at how their colonists actually lived, and they weren't pleased. This led up to the Stamp Act and the Quartering Act and the Sugar Act. The Stamp Act was when Britain put a tax on the colonies that they had to buy a stamp for every piece of paper that they used. Of course, the colonists didn't like this and protested, but Britain didn't back down. The Quartering Act stated that when British soldiers needed shelter or just a place to stay, the colonists had to provide it for them with no arguments. Again, some colonists got mad, and the New York Provincial Assembly refused to follow the act and got suspended from the government. The Sugar Act was Britain's effort to impose new taxes on the colonies. It put important tax on several objects, such as molasses. It also called for harsh punishments on smugglers. Along the road to the American Revolution, a few fights broke out. One was the Boston Massacre. During the Boston Massacre, a small riot broke out between British soldiers in Boston. 5 Bostonians were killed as well as 10 injured. Instead of making it better by trying to cool down the anti-British settlement, the final result was increase in support for independence. Many people know that the Boston Tea Party was when a group of colonists dumped tea off a cargo ship into the harbor, but what they don't know is why. When Britain put a higher tax on tea, the colonists rebelled and took over a cargo ship, dumping all of the tea into the harbor. This led to Britain giving in to the colonists and forming the Tea Act. After the Boston Tea Party, the British East India Company took a big hit. The Tea Act was Lord North's attempt to save it. Sorry. It lowered the price on tea, but colonists didn't buy it because it was still taxed. Britain finally got tired of... I don't know where my other paper went. Oh, okay. Sorry. Of the rebellion and Britain finally got tired of the rebellion and established some new laws, colonists referred to as the Intolerable Acts. These acts made control over the colonies a lot more strict, seeing as the colonists weren't really used to having any laws in the first place. They got angry and rebelled. Then, in 1776, Thomas Paine published Common Sense. Common Sense was a pamphlet written to persuade colonists to support independence from Great Britain, and those were the events that led up to the Revolutionary War.